Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Sandy Smith, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Pilot Officer Matthew Weatherald. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If you can be seated, please do so. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record that they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private James Leyden. James was born Christopher James Leyden in Carlton, Melbourne in October 1893 to parents John and Catherine Leyden. He attended Stewart Street State School and St Francis Roman Catholic School in Melbourne and was the Scout Master of the 1st Moreland Troop of Boy Scouts. After finishing school, James remained in Melbourne, moving to Brunswick and finding work as a telephone cable joiner. James enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 5th of January 1915, 3 months after his 21st birthday. He was assigned to the 14th Infantry Battalion in the rank of private and started initial training in camp outside Melbourne. After 2 months of training, Private James Leyden left Australia in HMAT Shropshire on the 20th of March 1915, bound for Egypt. James arrived in Egypt in early May and likely underwent further training before joining the 14th Battalion on Gallipoli. Over the next few months, the battalion was heavily involved in establishing and defending the Anzac Line on the peninsula, moving between frontline trenches and bivouacs. In early August 1915, the battalion took part in the August Offensive, the attempt by the British and Allied armies to push through the existing Ottoman lines in order to renew the attempt to capture the peninsula. As part of the offensive, the 14th Battalion were ordered to capture Hill 971, a piece of strategic high ground near Chunuk Bair. The attack began on the 6th of August and lasted 2 days. The hill was temporarily captured at great cost, but ultimately Ottoman forces forced the Australians to withdraw on the 8th of August. Following the end of the attack, James was reported as missing in action. He had been wounded in the head and taken prisoner by the Ottomans. James was transported from Gallipoli to Constantinople, where he was hospitalised in Galhane Hospital. Private James Leyden died of his wounds sustained in battle on the 11th of August 1915. He was 21 years old. James's remains were buried the next day at Ferricoy Protestant Cemetery, Constantinople, by Reverend Robert Frew from the Scottish Presbyterian Mission. Although his fellow prisoners of war were not permitted to attend, the funeral was witnessed by a representative from the American Embassy. In 1922, his father, John, wrote to Base Records requesting that James's body be moved to the Catholic portion of the cemetery in line with his faith. John received a response that the cemetery was the only Christian cemetery in the area, and as a result, men from many different denominations were buried there. It was suggested that given the circumstances, exhumation would likely not be advisable. In 1931, however, James's remains were exhumed and reburied in Hayder Pasha Cemetery in Constantinople as part of efforts to consolidate the graves of Commonwealth soldiers from across the Ottoman Empire. James's parents chose the inscription on his Imperial War Grave headstone, willingly gave his life that others might live in freedom. James's name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his memorial plaque is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Leyden, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.